Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our next panel, Army Software Modernization.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So, super excited about this topic. We've been at this for a while. I know my battle buddy Margaret and I have been trudging through the bureaucracy for the last year, really rethinking how we deliver software in the Army. So, really tight partnership between ASALT and CIO on just laying the foundation for where we're going and enabling us to move really fast. I got Lauren up here too to talk a little bit about some of those initiatives that were in there, right? Specifically stuff that we get asked a lot about, right? This thing you called SMART, which we often call Team Phoenix, right? This idea of having this triage team that comes in as the ambulance when your software program is not doing too hot. And we come and kind of help you a little bit, right, and reshape you, or have the opportunity to help folks that are just kicking off a program really move in the right direction when it comes to software, and really stay in line not just with the software directive, but with a new way of delivering software in the Army. So that being said, I'm going to kick it off to Margaret. She's kind of going to walk through some of the bigger aspects of the software directive, and then we'll get a little bit more nerdier on what we're doing on what I know a lot of people want to hear about, which is CATO, the path to get there, and what we're going to put out here in the next 2 weeks, which I hope gets a lot of folks excited so we can get software out there faster.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So again, I really just wanted to kind of provide a high-level overview of what this new software modernization directive is all about. It was a very significant effort that, as Leo said, ASALT and CIO with several others across the Army have been working for really over the course of the last year. And it really does two things at the highest level. The first thing it does is that it institutionalizes modern software development and acquisition approaches across the entirety of the Army. So not just within the acquisition community and formal programs of record, but across the entire Army, including across our Army commands and other organizations that are doing software development and or are working with our industry partners to acquire and or use software. So that modern software development, things like Agile, Lean, DevSecOps, that's the type of development approaches I'm talking about when I say modern software development. So that's the first thing that it did, was really require modern software development. And that's significant because, as you all know, right, software is more important than ever. It's always been important, but more so now than ever before. When you look across all of our weapon systems, our business systems, they all run on software. Everything from the goggles that we're putting on our soldiers to our radars and our missiles, our helicopters, our tanks, they all run on software. And so the ability to kind of rapidly upgrade and enhance these really software-based capabilities is very, very important. And so we think that the key to being able to do that, to rapidly upgrading and enhancing these capabilities, is through more modern software development approaches. If any of you are familiar with how we've historically done software, much more akin to the waterfall development approach. And so we're really trying to, it's a big shift within the Army to move to these modern software development approaches. The second thing that the new directive does really is it reforms a bunch of legacy processes that have existed within the Army for many, many years. And so when I talk about it, I always like to say this is not a technical challenge for the Army. Right? Industry has been doing modern software development since the 80s, right? I think is when the term agile development was first coined in the private sector. And so it's not new. People know how to do it. The problem for the Army really has historically been our legacy institution, our legacy processes that have hindered our ability to move with the agility and the flexibility that's required by these modern software development and acquisition approaches. And so the second thing that this new directive really does is it goes through all of those processes, everything from requirements, how are we writing and developing our requirements, to program management, like true acquisition, contracting, cost estimating, cybersecurity, as Leo mentioned at the beginning. How are we testing? Are we testing things in an agile manner? How are we thinking about sustainment? And then lastly, kind of the workforce and the talent piece, because if you don't have the people to do it, then, you know, it's all for naught, if you will, if you don't have the right folks with the right expertise to actually implement the changes. And so we looked at all of those kind of legacy processes from beginning to end. And really what this policy document does is it reforms each one of those processes such that we can do more modern software development, do more modern kind of acquisition, use these more flexible acquisition approaches that are better suited when we're talking about software. And so handful of really key changes that I'd like to hit on kind of at a very high level. And then, as Leo mentioned, Leo and Lauren will kind of dive into a couple of the significant ones that we've already made great progress on. So the first change, really, that this new policy is driving is changing the way that we write our requirements. If any of you are familiar with how we have historically written our requirements, they are very, very prescriptive, incredibly detailed, very long. We almost drive you to an exact solution, if you will. Based on this new policy, what we're doing now is taking a step back, and instead of these very prescriptive requirements documents, we are writing higher level needs statements. So we're really just defining the problem at a very, very high level and throwing that out there to industry to come to us with solutions. And because we're writing them at a much higher level, that gives us the flexibility to kind of evolve our requirement, if you will, based on changing technologies, changing user needs, the changing threat landscape, right? It really allows for our requirements to change over time so that our software solutions can be changed over time. And so taking a step back, writing these documents at a much higher level. We've already seen a lot of success here. If you look at some of our legacy software programs, we've had requirements documents that are 600 pages long, no joke. And more recently, we've had capabilities needs statements released for these software programs that are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pages, as opposed to 600. So really taking a step back and just defining at a high level the problem, our need for our industry partners. The second thing that this policy directive does is it really drives us to use more flexible acquisition and contracting approaches. So when we're talking about acquisition, specifically talking about custom development, so we're really doing true custom software development with you all, we want to use the software acquisition pathway. That, of course, is a relatively new pathway that Congress gave to us. Lots of flexibilities with that pathway, and so we're really driving folks to use that, again, when doing true custom development. Similarly, we're asking folks to think smartly about the types of contracts that they're using. We're not mandating or prohibiting any specific contract type, but some certainly lend themselves to be more flexible than others and allow for solutions to be refined and requirements to be refined over time. So when we're talking custom development, perhaps a cost type contract, an incentive type contract, a hybrid contract is more appropriate. When we're talking true commercial as a service or commercial product, perhaps firm fixed price is the most appropriate. So we're just asking folks to think and be smart with the contract type that they're choosing. The third kind of big change is a streamlining and modernizing of a bunch of different processes. Leo's going to hit on some of these, our cybersecurity processes. How do you actually go about getting an authority to operate on the network, which has historically been an incredibly onerous, time-consuming, resource-intensive process. So Leo will talk about that. But how can we streamline our test processes? That's something that this policy is also driving at. Leaning into automated testing, reducing duplicative testing wherever possible. Lots of those types of changes. And again, the team will hit on that a little bit in more detail. And then really the last big change that I'll hit on is the workforce piece. As I mentioned, you have to have the right folks. And so what this policy directive does is it actually centralizes some key expertise. The Digital Capabilities Contracting Center of Excellence is one of those kind of centralized teams. Miss Danielle Moyer, who is the SCO at Aberdeen Proving Ground, she's been on a number of panels at AUSA this year. If you all have heard any of her talk, she's really running that center. A lot of our software intensive contracts are now going to her team. She's building a team of true experts, software procurement kind of best practices. So we're pushing those there to the folks that really know how to do software contracting. And then the SMART, the Software Management Response Team, which of course is in the CIO shop that Lauren's leading, also known as Team Phoenix, that she'll talk to you about, true kind of software development expertise. Because as we look across the Army, software in all of our programs, and we just don't have the expertise at scale, and so we're trying to build these pockets of excellence that at least we can turn to help our program office management officers and to help our Army commands who are trying to do software development efforts. So at a very, very kind of high level, those are some of the key points of the new directive. I'll hand it off to Leo and Lauren to dive into some of the more specific pieces of it, but just to emphasize really, really significant kind of reform effort, one of the more significant ones across the department to really change the way that we are developing and acquiring software.
All right, the ever elusive CATO, continuous ATO, right? Super exciting. We've been watching this kind of show on this for a while in the department. Where are we, right? So I'm going to tell you where the Army is right now. One of the tasks in the software directive, besides just more generalized risk management framework and cybersecurity reform, was really like, can we get to this point to put out guidance for CATO? And I appreciate everybody in industry who's given us a lot of feedback on this. This is one of the few things that I can say definitely was not done in a vacuum, right? A lot of great feedback from the folks in industry, a good partnership with folks around the Army who are experts in this space to rethink how we get to an ATO for software, right? So we talk DevSecOps, we get tools, we do things, but right now there hasn't really been any guidance, right? It's still the traditional checklist. So we're taking the new digital process and, using our great industrial age processes to overlay on top of them. Doesn't end well for most of us, right? So what does that mean and what are we doing? So a couple of things. The first thing I was asked, I think like 100 days ago, I said, I'm going to go to AUSA and I'm going to tell you exactly what we're doing and who the pilot programs are. So I'm here to tell you that. A couple of things. So we started this effort, believe it or not, about 3.5 years ago in a little bit of a silo in Intel. So lots of thanks to folks on the Intel side that we were working this kind of, in the trenches to try to figure out. Our cyber jumped on board that project early on. And we realized very quickly that the department's approach, specifically around this checklist-based approach to how we do this, is probably the wrong answer. So we've taken a vastly different approach right now. So I'm going to walk you through what that really means. So the first is this reality of you don't just push your stuff through a pipeline and it's accredited is a really important thing. You got to land on something that's safe, right? Like you can't jump into an empty pool. I mean, you can. It's not a good idea. So we're really focused on making sure that we land on some accredited framework out there. We have a couple. We work between us and ASALT, right? We've said, these data platforms are ready to go and approved. Kind of our next stage is going to be these no-code, low-code platforms are ready and approved to really let people move out without having to worry about kind of the cybersecurity piece, have a PM that can manage that, and not really have to get into the business of, the administrivia of deploying capability. Also means a lot less custom developed software out there. When we thought about that use case, we realized, well, those folks are still going to have their code in a code repository. It's still going to have to get scanned. And this kind of idea dawned on us that there's like 1 to n different ways of delivering capability. So you guys are going to see a memo come out here shortly, hopefully in the next 2 weeks.
Got it.
It's close, folks. It's really close. But the first memo really is kind of identifying and saying, hey, look, if you meet these requirements, right, whether you're a department asset, an Army asset, or even a commercial asset, right, if you meet these requirements, we'll approve these platforms to be used. So think Get, SonarCube, sitting somewhere, right, in the enterprise, maybe outside the enterprise. But we got to make sure that they're platforms that are safe to operate on, right? They got to meet the minimum requirements. Break. What that really does is it lets us use those different use cases, and at least we're kind of helping folks go to the right place to make sure that we're putting, DoD code and IP, right, in a place where the PRC is not going to come after it. And if they do, we're going to know. Right? So that's the first one. That lays this initial foundation. The next piece is this idea of I'm program X. I want to do a CI/CD pipeline. I love that question. It's fun in my office, right? A lot of people doing DevOps. Notice what's missing in that sentence. So right now, right, this is this idea of coming in with, this is my plan on how I want to deliver code, and I'm going to be very specific in language, to production, right? This is my CI/CD pipeline to production. And what does that look like? With a really important understanding, and the understanding is this one. Not everybody's going to be a 5 on the 1 to 5 scale. Some folks, probably not going to go to production, right? But you know what? They're going to get code done in a much safer way. It's going to be a little faster. We got some work to do. Some programs may just not need to have a full CI/CD pipeline, and we got to acknowledge that, right? So the plan is to come in and really, as folks come in, we walk through what their pipeline is, and it's not a checklist. It's about ConOp. And I forgot who I was talking to someone yesterday, and they're like, we got a CI/CD pipeline. I'm like, well, where are your security people? What security people? I'm like, then you're not really doing that, right? So I think this is really about like assessing the maturity. Right now, I feel confident in saying that we've got two pipelines in the Army right now that are true CI/CD pipelines that we're going to actually approve. And I think this is the important piece. One at PEO Soldier with Net Warrior, right? That's going to be kind of our first true large program of record that we're kind of going to go after. And then the next one is a little bit of a different flavor where you have PMDCO from IEWS delivering a capability, but you have a command, our cyber, operating that capability, right? So two different views and two different operating models, but the intent here is to get their CI/CD pipelines approved. And by the way, we've got about 8 more folks who've come to the table and said, hey, we want you to take a look. With an understanding that we may give you a 2 on maturity, but we're going to give you some advice to help you, right? And to figure out how to get to that 5 level, right? And really be eligible for a CATO. If you can get that stuff done and you can get a platform, right, or a landing spot to land on, then we can have a conversation about continuous ATO. And I think that right now, our first true pilots, right, it's going to be interesting to see, right? A lot of folks cringing already in the community who've been doing this a long time, right? I can hear it already. What's Netcom going to say? And is our cyber okay with this? And I hear all the questions. Yes, right? Like, we are doing this as an army, right? And I keep saying this thing. This isn't like we came to work one day, stood up a bunch of servers, and just started pushing code, right? The foundation of all of this is we have places that we know that are safe with safe capability that's getting managed that we can deliver on. Not one size fits all. I had 2 more things before I hand it over to Lauren, because we talk our reform in this space, and there's other things that are already happening that not everyone's seeing. So recently we pushed out a cloud assessment and authorization policy. If you have not seen that, that is the next level of true reform, right? If you take a look at that right now, I just finished talking to a program today, and I said, just do an MVP ATO. You get 6 critical control families, go do a red team, you're in production, right? I don't need $3 million of administrivia to tell me you're safe. I need you to do the bare minimum, and I need you to get a red team, and you're on that network. So we've had one program already pilot this at PEO C3N, and yes, we got an Army ATO for a system that hasn't been ever on the network in less than 90 days. That's a real thing. In cloud. Got to figure out how we're going to do this on-prem. A lot of work to do in that space. But I think this is where we talk real reform. And I think the last piece is, folks keep asking me what's next, right? So continuous ATO, there's low-hanging fruit. Business systems, right? That's easy. The 85 birthday apps we have in the Army, that's a thing. That's easy. These things that are just simple web apps, we got that. Like I tell folks, if we can't do that, we probably shouldn't be building software, right? The challenge and what we're really going after right now, and the next step, which I think is the more critical step, is how do we do something like this for HIMARS? What does that look like, right? Because that's where we're talking major dollars and major effects, right? Getting a new firing table out there in a couple of hours is a big deal. Right, so how do we get at that? That is our next pilot effort, is working with a program over at PEO, who is that right now? Aviation? Yeah, no, Missiles and Space, to work on some of these problems, to have a hardware in the middle kind of approach. And I'll end with this, because I've said this a bunch of times publicly, and I continue to press on this. We're not going to do this all organically, right? We've written these policies and the approach to vet a CI/CD pipeline or vet the tools in a way where it's like, could we do go-go? Yes. Our cyber, they're killing it. It's full go-go. Like, they're making it work. They've got a plan. They're going to sustain it long term. Can we do go-co? Oh, yeah, that's easy. I think all of us here have been doing that for a long time, right? Nothing new. What I'm stressing and what I want to push on you guys is, I want to do COCO. Like, let's do this. Like, let's stop pretending that this is something new. Like, if you've got the pipeline in your corporate space, then let's figure out how to get the logs shared, right? We figured out how to do SaaS, kind of. It's getting better. We can definitely figure this out, but we need your help because there's so many use cases out there where, as I talk to folks, is, but you already did the work. Why am I going to redo it again in the Army? Like, just give me access into these things, and we can move at speed and scale together. And it's not you waiting for our bureaucracy, right? It's us integrating into your deployment pattern. So we need help there, right? That's where we're looking for folks. Push on the PEOs as much as you can on this, right? I think this is like the evolution of where we're going. That being said, I've said enough. I think I did the teaser, which is more than just a teaser. I'm going to hand it over to Lauren to talk about SMART, what we've learned so far, and just some things to think about on what's next.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And hi, I'm Lauren Pavlik. I'm the Chief for Software Modernization and Director of Team Phoenix. So we have a ton of fun. We've got 38 projects under our belt over the last year or so, and we've seen a lot of common themes, and we've seen a lot of, I've got feedback right behind my ear, so sorry, and it's been very, very fascinating. So we're going to hit on three main topics as we've really gotten a really good sight picture of where we are overall in the software element. And so just keep in mind, we're looking at all the very critical projects across that Mr. Garciga has approved as we send up our problem statements, your problem statements. Some have gotten approved, some have not gotten approved, and what we've learned. So one of the biggest ones is product ownership, which is a really core foundational element of agile delivery. And some are doing it really well, some have room for improvement, and there's a lot of opportunity for optimization in this particular space. And one of the things that has really been highlighted is either a lack of harmony or an opportunity for harmony across our contracts and our government folks within those the system owners' offices. And it's been really fascinating to listen to their stories and hear what they have to say and be like, oh yeah, the contract's got it, they're agile. Well, what does that mean? Tell me more. And then every story is fascinating to me. I get really pumped up when we're like, okay, well, what does this mean? And how are you actually operating? What's your delivery time frame? Are you delivering every 2 weeks? The answer is typically no. And so then we help them get onto that path of like, well, what does it really mean to commit code every week? What does it mean to approve a release every 2 weeks? And that's been one of the highlights that I find really fascinating, of like really helping them along into getting back to those foundational elements of Agile and really doing it and saying this is how we're going to do it and see that out. And then having these active product owners across the board really taking grip of it and running wild in that space, which is fascinating. And I love watching that transformation and to see the government really hone in and being partners with that contract along the way to really see the software out and be modern. Which leads us into the agile transformation. And the reason why I'm like, I haven't really talked about apps yet. We'll get there, I promise. But the level of delivery that we were seeing in the very beginning and when these projects come to us is typically very slow. It's not what we would want to see. So by the end of the 6 months, because all of our projects are really meant to be 3 to 6 months long, to really help them and analyze what their acquisition approach is, what their system looks like, what the application can do, what it looks like. And it's gotten to a point where we can see the application, and then I'm like, oh, we see the demo, and I'm like, oh, that looks like code from 2012. Good job. And so then we're like, okay, well, how can we get this into a more modern look and feel and help support in that way? And it's half the time it's because they're delivering on a quarterly basis, or they're like, well, the contract says we deliver this capability every 3 months. Well, why? Like, let's get these features together. Let's start getting it out faster. And that's where the harmony between the product ownership and the actual, like, what does the software look like, and what we're seeing across the board. And again, I'm not seeing all the rock stars, right? They don't get to come to Team Phoenix, but we get to see all the really critical ambulance needing systems. And so what that also comes down to is our portfolio reviews. And so this is also where I get really animated in the workshops, and we'll do like 1 to 2 day workshops of like, what does this ACOM's portfolio really look like? What are all the systems you have going? And then what are the opportunities for some of those systems to combine, consolidate, optimize, and maximize also in that space, which is also really fun to watch, and bring that together. And I call them buckets, because I'm like, okay, well, here's a bucket over here of this type of software, and like we can put those together because we haven't really optimized. We did all these little things in silos. Okay, well, hey, you've got this feature. You guys all have the same theme going. Well, if these are just the 3 main features with some sub-features over here, let's come together. Let's consolidate this. Let's make this one ATO. Let's make it happen and put it in the cloud. And that gets really exciting. And so then we can start doing a pyramid style of like what are the biggest hot topics, and then we can go down to the lowest level of needing support, right? So in those portfolio reviews, okay, yep, got it. Thank you. Because I get really pumped up, so they had to give me a time. Like, calm down, lady. So the consolidation portion gets really exciting to me, because then we're really delivering a better product to the soldier and what the soldiers are telling us that they want. And there's also been an example where the soldiers are demanding a particular type of tool that they want, and they've done so 5 times. And so they've created the same thing in multiple commands, all with the same noble intent. And every one of our projects all starts out with noble intent and really striving to do what they think is best. And so we're just coming out to say, like, hey, did you know that your friend over here has created the same thing? And hey, they're doing it in a more modern way. We can get you out of some vulnerabilities if you help over here. And so then we're bringing those teams together. And by the end of the 6 months, the goal, we'll have different goals. It could be a CNS. It could be a better requirements document. It actually could be an MOA for a functional to be joining an acquisition program to help make that program accelerate. And those are the types of stories that I get really pumped up for work every day, because you're seeing the action and the teamwork come together across the Army. And as large as the Army is, and you can see that throughout this conference, and how many companies support us and how much really cool capability we have, where we can say, hey, soldiers are demanding this. This is not unique to one command over another, and we can come together and make this great. So on that note, I will turn it over to you. Those are some of the highlights for us.
I appreciate everyone's time here. I will say that we did have an application who just celebrated its 50th birthday.
Yep. True story.
So when she said 2012, I was like, how about 50 years of code base that hasn't changed? That's terrifying. The good thing is that everyone that can hack that is probably dead. So it's safe. So, no hurry. Hey, look, I do appreciate everyone listening. I think, we continue to move down this road. I think definitely the partnership between ASOL and our team and CIO to really kind of start this idea of doing this transformation at a very foundational level moving forward is really critical. We appreciate everybody's support in the industry. Look, keep the letters coming too. If you have thoughts, if you have ideas, I don't know. I don't think we got it 100% right, trust me. But let us know where we need to get it right or where we need to shape things and adjust the rheostats so we can help us all get capability better. Anything else, Margaret? All right. Do we even have time for a question? One question?
Maybe one.
We got 3 minutes. You guys got questions. This is great. Anybody got a question except the front row? No questions? I mean, there's one question. Oh, no. A former G2er. This is dangerous, folks.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
how's it going?
I'm doing fine. How are
All right.
you?
So, coming in mind, I have a team, software engineer, cloud engineer, developing great code for like API connect between this server to this server. We're documenting everything. How do we share this with you at Upper Echelon? Sort of like a library of Go code, you could say. So people don't have to recreate the scripts. We can faster implement this on board. Over. Thank you.
That is a fantastic use case, right? So that's a good example of why we're doing what we're doing and why we've broken it up into 4 separate and distinct kind of guidances. We have a couple of approved enterprise Git instances, right? So start committing code, brother, right? Like you can go to RCyber, you can go to ECMA on DSO services. I mean, we've got a bunch of ways. You can do it on disa.mil if you like, right? On their service too. I think the big thing is to make sure you advertise where you want to do it. But inside the Army, we've got a bunch of good places, and we can get you with the team and get you the specifics on that. All right, I think I have like 42 seconds. Again, I appreciate everyone coming out here. If you've got any questions, ask Lauren, not me. And look, we're excited about where we're going. A lot of this stuff has come out. My goal right now, if I can make it tanker simple, like I was told the other day, even though that's not the customer base we're shooting for, but I was told that we have to do that. We will hopefully have it out here in the next 2 weeks. All right, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you.